how do you misbehave in a room? Are there some questions you should not ask? When they ask us, you ask us the question. Are there questions you should not ask?
Yes. So you, especially at the end of the interview, you need to be very careful when they ask you, do you have any questions for us? What kind of questions you ask in the end? Because then that is the last impression. The first impression is very important, but then also the last impression, how you're going to leave the interviewers feeling about you is so important, because then it might mean whether or not you're getting the job. So you don't want to ask questions like, after I get this job, how soon can you increase my salary? Or if I get this job, do you guys normally give us money for lunch, or do you give us money for? Is there an extra allowance for like transport? Don't ask questions that are only about you. You want to ask questions that would leave the interviewers feeling like you care about the organization and what value you want to bring to them. So you can ask questions like, for this role that I'm applying for, what does success look like? How are you going to measure success? What is going to be required of me in the first 30, 60, 90 days? Remember, any other question about the offer and the salary and what to expect in the organization, you can ask at the point when you get the offer. At that point, before you sign the offer, you have the way to ask any kind of question that you want. The purpose of an interview is to land you the offer. So land the offer first. Don't ask questions that are going to automatically disqualify you for that job, or would make an interviewer feel like this person is just here for the money and not value.
How do I negotiate my salary? Joanne, what was your first job? I think you worked at a bank, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, I worked at Family Bank.
What were you doing? Were you a teller?
Yes.
Okay, so assuming we're going to do role playing.
Horrible job.
Oh, really?
I'm very bad at math. So I used to get diffs all the time.
You used to get what?
They're called diffs. So when in the morning, you're given amount X. And then in the
1
evening.
million.
Yes. Then in the evening, you need to read, the
like
books need to reconcile. So like
pesa ulikuwa unapeleka wapi Joan? Joan, hey.
The difference, like CAD, CAW, so like cash deposit and cash withdrawal. So sometimes instead of depositing, you withdraw. Instead of withdrawing, you deposit.
Just confirming, pesa
ilikuwa tukienda tu round kwa hiyo system na sikuwa nikielewa.
So if someone asks when you're coming to a bank, call it the Pearl Radio Bank, and you're interviewing for the job of being a teller, and then ask you, how much do you want to get paid, Joanne? What would you answer?
So it depends on a number of things. So you want to consider the market. So what are tellers in other banks being paid?
But I've asked you the question. So like, right, do you know how much tellers are being paid? Are these things
on
for
average
you to consider?
Yeah. Sorry?
Before you come for the interview?
Yeah. So before you go for an interview, you need to be you need to be ready to answer that question.
So you come in with a figure.
You must come in with a figure. But this figure is informed by a number of things. You have done your research to ask a number of people who work in different banks, how much are you being paid? You're also considering, you have done a degree, you probably graduated with honors. You cannot be paid the same as someone else who does not have the same kind of qualifications. You probably worked before. You did maybe an internship. You probably worked all the way from first year. Like I worked from first year. So there's no way I'm being paid the same as someone who did not have any kind of work experience. So you're considering the market, what other bank tellers are being paid. You're considering your own qualifications and your own achievements to say that this is what my value is, this is what I'm bringing, and this is what I need to be paid.
And how do you ask for salary increase once you're already in? And let's say you've asked for 40,000, and maybe you came wanting 50k, and we tell you maybe you came in wanting 50k, right, and tell you we're going to give you 40,000. What do you say to that?
So you could you could say that you could try and negotiate the salary and base it on something. The problem normally is people want an increment, but it's not based on anything. So I should increase your salary from 40 to 50. Why? What kind of achievements have you brought? So even when you're thinking about the salary increment, it needs to be pegged on something. Are there processes you introduced? Have you done an additional certification? Have you gone for a certain training that justifies them increasing the salary? So there needs to be a reason as to why that salary is being increased.
What happens if there's a standoff?
So if there's a standoff, then you decide whether you want to, to keep the job. But I would try and negotiate as much as possible. Is it negotiation?
Negotiations.
Is it negotiate?
Negotiate. You negotiate, but they're negotiations.
Okay, that one. It's a skill that you want to develop, so that then you're not leaving the table empty-handed. So maybe they are not going to increase the salary, but they're going to pay for your school, or maybe they're not going to increase the salary, but they can give you paid time off, or they're not going to increase the salary, but you're going to be given additional vacation days. So you want to live there with something. I'm going to live there with something.
I'm asking because one of maybe my first job, and I was not qualified for the job, but anyway, I went for this job, and they told me they have 25,000. I was maybe 23 years old. I said, I got 40,000. And they said, no, we give people 25 when they're starting, and then after a year, we bump them up to 40. And I came in, but they had no justification for the 40. I just, in the math going there, I just thought 40 would be a good number. And I don't know why there was no justification for it. And I said 40. And there was a standoff. And the general manager said 25. And I said 40. And none of us was willing to back down. And so I left without a job. And I remember going home thinking, have I made the biggest mistake of my life, or have I made a stand for what I thought was like empowerment of the lawyers?
Solidarity.
I'm speaking for the voiceless and everything. What did you advise someone like me at that time?
So you see, it depends on a number of things. Are you do you need this job to survive?
No. I was in my parents' house.
Yeah, there are people who they need after campus they're probably, and I'm speaking for myself, like me, I was on help. I was on ministry, Ministry of Education. There's a fund. I was working, I was doing I think 3 jobs plus the help plus all this. So I needed the job to to survive. So it depends. Do you actually need the job to put food on the table? Maybe you're paying school fees for your other younger siblings. So I think it depends on an individual and where they are at.
Are those things you say internally, or those things you tell the employer and say, hey, unajua kwetu rent umepanisha rent, my child is about to join class 1?
No, you never say, you cannot say the reason why you want this money is because you're paying school fees and all these things. The reason why they need to give you amount X is because of the value that you bring to the table. So always think of yourself as a value creating entity, and always think of yourself as someone of value, and quantify that value in terms of numbers.
Joanne, tell us, how does your faith play in all that you do?
So my faith, I think it's literally at the center. It's at the very core of what I do, because I don't think I would have been good at what I do if it was not for my faith. And I know, I have clients who are from a different faith than mine, but still I know my faith is at the core of what I do, and it plays a very big part.
All right, I have someone who texted in earlier and said, my passion is not paying as much as I would like it to, but I can get work elsewhere that I would loathe doing, but it pays well, or well enough to sustain me. What advice do you have for him or her?
All right. So the goal is to do work that is in line with your strengths, your skills, and your passions. That's the goal. There are people who find it early on. There are people who found it when they're 18, 20. Some of us, we found it later on, but that's the goal. That's the ideal. I think all of us were created with a fire in our bellies, and God wants us to live an abundant life.
Yep.
But then the reality of life is there are bills to pay. There are people who are the ones who are the financiers, or in their family, so they need to actually work. So I think it depends on where someone is at. Then you're going to be able to make that decision. I would not advise someone to say that they're pursuing their passion and they're not being able to feed themselves or their families, and they're not able to they're not being able to pay their bills. So you can do work, you can do work that is paying their bills as you work towards that job, that is
the dream that you want to do.
Yes, which is the passion, work that is in line with your passions.
All right. I'm going to ask you about your parting shot and some Recruiter Insider secrets that you can share with us before you leave. However, I'm privy to some information that you like watching movies and series.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. I'm I can't prep you for everything, Joanne. So I'm going to give you some bios of some different, these are all fictional, these are all movies and every series, right? And you're going to tell me who they are
I hope they are chick flicks, all of them.
I hope they're not, man. My production team, I hope they're not. But I would think you'd know them.
All right.
So they're very simple. So for one, let me start with the first one. This guy's an industrialist. He's a genius inventor, and he's the CEO of Stark Industries.
I wouldn't know.
His name is Tony Stark. The movie is Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know.
All right. Let me give you a different one. He's a journalist. He works in a city called Metropolis and is in love with a girl called Lois Lane.
Wow. No, that one I know.
You must know that.
I know.
Yeah.
It's Superman, but
it is Superman. Exactly. Okay. That's exactly what we're looking for. He's a hip hop mogul. He must choose a successor among his 3 sons who are battling for control.
Power.
Empire. Close.
Oh.
Close. Okay. Well done. I like that one. Okay. He's a former boxing heavyweight champion. Rocky Balboa serves as a trainer for him and is a mentor to Adonis Johnson. Have you watched Creed by any chance?
I've seen it.
You've seen it, but you've not watched it. Okay. Good. Not bad. A criminal defense attorney. She selects a group of students, the best and the brightest, to assist her with cases at her firm.
How to get away with murder.
Well done. That is my little
C.
Really good. Your stuff. You know your stuff.
All right. Like 2 out of 10. But
you're not too shabby. You're not too shabby. This is a sitcom. It's headlined by 4 awkward male scientists and their relationships, including one who's a waitress turned actor.
That's what I know. Okay, and I think I like it. Big Bang Theory.
Well done.
Yes,
I told you, you're not too shabby. You're not too shabby. Second last one. He's an attending surgeon at St. Bonaventure. He has autism and Savant syndrome. You know this one.
Say that again.
He's an attending surgeon at a hospital called St. Bonaventure.
Oh, I think
he has autism.
I can see the face, but
and Savant syndrome.
Gina Imeenda.
His name is Sean Murphy. What's the name of the series?
I know it.
You know it. It's The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor. All right. Finally, he's a junior attorney at a firm called Pearson Spectalit. He masquerades as a Harvard-trained attorney, but he didn't go to Harvard. Well done.
Yeah.
I know you know your stuff. I know you know your stuff. This is for you, Joanne.
Chipo.
3 out of 10.
Go ahead.
So for somebody like me who's not a professional but gets job more of talent, and I want to get a gig on a session like this one, like Pearl, and I'm told to give not my CV but my profile.
Yeah.
How can that look like?
Right, that's a very good question. And I believe everyone needs to have a form of documentation that you can quickly give someone who wants to see what your skills, your talents, your achievements are. And the format can, it can be a different format away from a CV. So I think it all depends on like how you brand yourself.
Very true.
You can even decide to do it like on a LinkedIn profile, like put like everything you have done on a LinkedIn profile, or you can put it in a Word document, but then put it in a format that is very attractive and catch it there. So it has everything, but then it's a document that is presentable and professional. And those documents, I've seen it, I've seen this over and over again. They portray some form of professionalism, and you're able to land gigs that you previously would not have. So I would just say it's documenting everything that you've done and then presenting it in a way that's professional.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, we need to land this ship. What's a parting shot you have? What are some tips that people need to find out? And of course, how can we get you?
Right. So I think for a parting shot, personal branding is very important. And when I talk about personal branding, is how you do your CV, your LinkedIn profile, how you present yourself during an interview, that you are putting your best foot forward, you are being as professional as possible to increase the chances of you landing a job. How can you find me? joanne.thuo@gmail.com on email. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those platforms. It's Joanne, the career coach.
Are you on Threads?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. My mind cannot. Too much.
Joanne, thank you so much for coming through this morning. Thank you also to our team. She's with her team, Emily and Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys have been super duper amazing.
96.9 FM, Pearl Radio.